Thank you very much for coming. I might start like a series doing BCC graduates, because there's a few of them now. That was really good, and now a few of them have come into my head, and for the next few weeks we might just get like get some graduates in here. But thank you very much. Most of you knew him already. Maybe you're the only exception, because he graduated last year. And yeah, the BCC celebrity coming back, and yeah, open up your questions. He's had a interesting journey. I've followed him because there's only a year between us.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's got a lot to share with you guys. So pick his brain a little bit.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Associate or not associate?
Oh my God, I think it's a good thing. Yeah, associateship is good. There are some personalities and people that may benefit from working for themselves right away, but I would say you always learn a lot in an associateship, and especially as a student you think, okay, cool, as an associate you have someone that is going to look over your shoulder all the time and you'll be adjusting, they will correct you and so on. I don't think that is the rule. Like, that's not going to happen. The associateship helps you a lot for maybe seeing a bigger amount of people, and also if you're making mistakes, you're making them under their name a little bit, and you're going to learn under there. So I think it's a good way to have experience, learn experience, and stability too. Yeah. I think it's good. But find something where your feeling, your heart, and so on tells you yes, not just rationality and your brain, in my opinion. Okay, so that's a big one. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, associateship.
What would you tell yourself now before you associate? Like when you're about to graduate and to go to
graduation day, what would you say?
What would you tell, like, hey, be aware of this?
Okay, so that's a good question. First of all, if you are engaged as a chiropractor student, okay, and you know what you are principled already, and you're not going to compromise your principles, then you need to find something that is in line with your values and your principles, okay? If you are like, whatever, chiropractic works no matter what, and you are down to try out new things, and you leave your ego at the door, as people say, and then you can choose, I guess, whatever you like to, yeah. So for myself, I was somewhere in between. I'm always up to learn new things, but when I realize something is not mine, it's not for me, then I can't do it, Then for me it would be now the thing of saying, go somewhere that enables you to grow on yourself, on where you think, okay, this is the way I want to go, and this helps me to get there, instead of I need financial stability. I'm afraid. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Exactly. Yeah. So more these empowering kind of beliefs and things that are already in line with yourself. For example, if you are super fired up for AK and you think this is necessary to find subluxation, well, maybe flying 7 spa chiropractic is not for you. Same for if you like Gonstead or I don't know, like this kind of things, Yeah.
And then to expand on that even further, so that's if you could go back to graduation day. If you could go back to where she is, which is first year, first semester, well, kind of like with your brother, like he's got this whole 5-year journey of all these ups and downs, and you're going to fall in and out of love with different techniques. Now that you've got the bit of paper and you're practicing and you're doing it, what would you say to yourself in first year?
It's all going to be good. When I started chiropractic, I'm a second generation chiropractor. I didn't know how many bones there were in the spine when I started. I didn't even know what different techniques are. I never saw a table like that. I only knew the things my dad did, and that was very, very different from what was in school. Completely different worlds. And for some time I was very pro something different, because I'm a guy, I like to travel, I like to meet new people, I like to try out new things. So for me, wow, this is cool. And they say, chiropractic works no matter what. And I still agree, if you master a technique, it works no matter what. But now looking back to it, I'd say there are some things that work maybe a bit better or faster than others. And you got to find what works for you. I tried certain techniques in the beginning, and then I changed. I think I did everything in my student life, and I also encouraged other people to do that. However, if you find something you fall in love with and you stick with that, of course you're gonna be better with that than someone who is a jack of all trades. What would I tell myself? It's tough to tell. With Simon, I would say, yeah, of course, try and focus on one thing. But it's always good to have a bit of a bigger toolbox and to not be completely stuck.
Arno said, dig the well deep enough until you hit oil. Don't dig lots of little small holes. I would agree with that.
Rationally, it makes more sense. But if you try it a lot, then you also know what works, what doesn't work.
Well, trying it, and that's what the point is of this group as well, and bringing different people in, because all the people that have come to spoke to us so far, they all adjust very differently. So get adjusted by them. Maybe do like a little seminar like this, or even go to a weekend seminar and see what's for you. Like, I've experimented with a couple of different techniques, but then I went deep on full spine diversified, and now kind of flirting a bit with the Gonstead stuff. You were very diversified from that. I never did KTC. I'm sure it's great. I never did a KTC seminar. I liked MLS and Syntropy. That was my bread and butter. You went more down, you went deep into the KTC, and then came out of that and went to Gonstead. So we kind of did the same thing. I was just a year behind him, and we went a little bit of a different way, and then came to the same conclusion at the end of it, which I always thought was pretty funny.
Yeah. So I was actually, first year I did a lot of Gonstead in a sense, but as a first year you only get so far. Then second year we had MLS, that was with Daniel Sterling, and it was great because we just got a lot of hands-on, so I went more into that direction. And then third year was was not such a good year, especially technique-wise. I didn't practice at all because we had different teacher, and it was kind of, there was no fire. So Daniel, the MLS people, they brought the fire, and I appreciate that a lot. Like, that was great, and I got this fire back from Kairos. So that's why I went fully on there. And then when you start to master something, like, I don't want to say master, but you're getting proficient at a technique, then I'm like, okay, cool. So what's the next step? What is more difficult to learn? What is more precise? Because it's one thing to adjust students, and it's another thing to adjust the 80-year-old grandmother with osteoporosis, especially when you don't have an activator on SOT blocks. You just want to be like, I'm going to use these. And I'm not just going to do contacts, then you got to know how to specifically move the bone in a good way, in a safe way. And I think that their Gonstead is the most specific kind of way to adjust that I know of.
So you see how he's very well-rounded, but it's because he did things and went, okay, I'm doing KTC now. He was president of the KTC club, did all the seminars, and went deep into that. And then came out of that and said, okay, I'm going to go and do something else, and then went deep into that, rather than being very scattered. So it's kind of like a paradox. Like, I'm almost contradicting myself. I'm like, try it, but then put it down and decide which one you're going to go deep into. Yeah. Makes sense?
I guess it's the sense of purpose as well. When you're there and you're kind of like, I don't have a purpose, and then you just be like, oh, this is inspiring, and there are people that give you one, then you're like, okay, now I'm going all for it. Gonstead, I think it's just a great technique, but the problem was there were not people that were like big inspirations to me.
Right.
I have to say that. I think it's a great technique, but there was no one who was like, damn, I want to be that guy,
Yeah.
But And it's the same principle now. It's like I try in the chair, and if it does not go, then I know that supine I have something to back it up, you know.
I agree.
Maybe if you are, and that's the thing, if you're very stuck on a mindset, then you're like, no, you're going to either damage it or you're not correcting the inferiority, so you're not going to do this and that. I'm more free on this. So I think there is a very good way, and then there is a good way, and then maybe you should try next time.
Right.
Yeah.
I have several questions. My first one is, where do you practice? Second one is, do you work for someone? And third one is, in which year did you know that, okay, I'm gonna work here and for this person?
Okay, so in my 4th year, I knew I'm going to work for someone. I had a couple offers and I decided I want to work for them. Then after my graduation, a month later, I went to the Netherlands and I practiced there for 4 months. And I decided this is not for me. And then I came back and now I'm here. And right now I'm practicing with myself. The good thing is because I was 2 years in student clinic and I had kind of a patient base that I was still in contact with. I'm doing okay, you know, and now I'm having 6 or 7 months here where I'm practicing in my living room. And I'm fortunate to have all my equipment because I like to practice with a knee chest, with a chair, and with my bench and some other things. And I got the experience now just in a short amount of time how it is to be an associate. Technically, I would say, because I put a lot of effort in my technique, that I'm doing okay compared to, for example, my knowledge about business, where I have not so many ideas, you know. But there, my idea is that I have connection and I can network so other people can help me out there. So I can still focus on my thing. And if I have questions, if I have problems, if I need to do taxes and register or something, I can do that. Okay.
That was number 2.
The other one was, what am I going to do? So I'm going to stay here for 6 more months, maybe a bit longer. And then with my girlfriend, I'm going to Sardinia. And in Sardinia, we're going to build something as fast as possible. We're going to be, yeah. So that's the plan is going to Sardinia, yeah.
You had a patient at the clinic who was seeing you consistently for a while, and then I think you left and they didn't get another intern. It was like transferred to this person and then it's like a maintenance care patient. So it was like this person's maybe had 2 or 3 substitutions, and then one day I went in, and there's going to be interns where a patient will come in and they'll be like, oh, I'm such and such's patient, and you'll be like, oh, okay, like, yeah, lie down. And then there's other ones where they'll come in and and this person said to me, like, oh yeah, I was Johannes's patient for 2 years, and I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, I'm like, oh my God, I hope I do a good job, you know. I went okay, but you'll get people like that as you're substituting, there'll be ones that you're like, okay, like, don't worry about it, and then there's other ones that you're going to be sweating because you're like, all right.
I should call these people now.
Yeah, call them.
Be like, guys,
Zarak screwed you up, so if you want me to fix it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah.
All right. So, as a BCC graduated, what would you say BCC has to improve the most or should focus the most in order to graduate the best chiropractors?
Moving the bone properly.
Technique.
Yeah, I think personally I love variety, as I told you, but it is good to give people a bit of a direction what chiropractic is first and then what it can be later. And I think that philosophy is your major thing, but they go hand in hand, the technique and the philosophy, right? And when we're looking at what should I say? When we're looking at what a subluxation is and how to correct it, then I would say it's the technique compartment, because we have enough physiotherapy care, we have enough nursing in school where we know about all the incidents and accidents and when not to adjust, but we're not getting taught how to adjust when this and this takes place. And we're also not getting taught sufficient protocol on where to adjust, because everybody is focused on adjust, but no one talks really about how to find properly what to adjust, you know. And I think the BCC would greatly benefit from a unified protocol, you know. Maybe you have 2 different protocols that kind of go into the same direction. So there's someone who is more likes to do all indicator and testing, but then also more on the palpation side of things. I don't think there is enough palpation in school. Yeah, it's all like, oh yeah, it's there. Okay, then it must be there. It is tough to get an objective
Why
idea.
is it there? I trust my hands. Well,
yeah, and that's the next thing of like intuition is based. You have only intuition on things that you've studied, right? And then you have reference experience, you know, and we don't have that enough, I think. Yeah. So if you would now ask fourth year for different listings and why that is, many would not know. This is the same with me, you know. I was like, damn, fourth year, I'm like, all right, now I have to grab a technique book and like study again the spine, because we're studying everything, but after first year you don't study enough about the spine anymore, in my opinion, because it's kind of like, yeah, that's done, that's easy. But if you look back in the days, that's the only thing they did, and they didn't need anything else, man. They still don't. There's still chiropractors practicing without insurance, and they are fine. So yeah, that's my
so that's what we can improve on. What do you think we do the best? Because I think it's not perfect, there's a lot of stuff to improve on, but I think there's a lot of stuff there that we're very lucky.
What we're doing the best is at being open for new things, being open for diversity, being very tolerant, okay? And that's what I'm super grateful for the BCC, is like the amount of freedom you have. You are basically, you can do whatever you want to do, so it is up to you. And that's the thing that I appreciate the most. And that's kind of the contradiction to the first thing I've said, because yes, you have a lot of freedom, but also if you don't have your sense of direction yet, you're going to be wandering around, and you're going to start in student clinic, and you're like, okay, what am I going to do? Whether you know, like, okay, I know if anything fails, that's the road I can take.
Yep.
See how that goes.
And I've spoke to Adrian about it, and I've said about like doing the flying 7 versus doing objective findings, and now I'm getting more excited about the Gonstead stuff, and I was asking him his opinion, because he's done a lot of different techniques, and he's like, yeah, in my experience, the thing that makes you that makes the best chiropractors is the ones that have their technique, and whatever it is, as long as there are some findings and you're not just guessing, whatever it is that makes you go, that one, yes, that's how I know I'm on the spot. Then that's what. So for Jordy, it's AK. For Jaime, it's X-rays. I like the scope. Like whatever it is that makes you go, yep, that's what makes me sure that I'm there. He likes the motion palpation, you know. But figure out what technique it is that gives you that certainty, and then go deep into that.
That's the next thing that you said. For Jordy, it's AK. But what technique teacher embodies their technique in school that inspires you? Because
we're giving you and that's kind of the philosophy of BCC, not to go on a whole BCC tangent, but I remember even in my my BCC interview, they were saying like, we're going to expose you to as much as we possibly can, and then you take what you want of that and go a different way, whereas there's other schools that kind of I have to cut that. I can't put that in there. There's no way I can put that in. 19 minutes, okay, right? Remember my so I don't have to watch the whole thing. And they really like indoctrinate. I don't think there's ever been a speaker at BCC that they were like, no, you can't come here. Whereas there's probably schools that if Joe was to message them and be like, hey, I'm in town, can I come and do a free talk to the students, they'd probably say no, because it's like, oh, you need to fit in this box that we are giving the students, and at least yes, we have our problems, but BCC is not trying to stuff you into the same box and make you a cookie cutter. We don't want cookie cutter chiropractors here. So yes, there's a downfall to that, but there's also really a strength. Like, do you realize how lucky you are? We have what do they call it? Master Energy Dynamics, the MED club. I don't do MED. I don't do all that stuff. But the fact that we're allowed to have that club makes BCC amazing. Go to XYZ college and tell them you want to make an energy good luck. So yes, I'd like a bit more structure, a bit more, but I think the diversity in the techniques gives us strength as well. So it's kind of, again, it's another paradox. We're contradicting ourselves today.
We're contradicting ourselves today.
And you have to, whenever you're talking, even when you're talking to patients, you're like, yes, I'm contradicting myself, but there's a bit of both components to this, you know.
And I guess from every college there are some students they graduate being very good, and others that still are on a long path, and no matter what's going to happen, it's about the work that you put in yourself. You know what I'm most grateful about BCC is the people,
the community.
The community. Like, I got some very good friends, and I can call you and you guys my friends. You know, like you spend 5 years with each other together, at least once.
You travel together, go to seminars together, party together.
Exactly, it's an amazing city. That's another thing. Like, you're not somewhere in the desert, so the quality of life is very high, and I think that's pretty cool.
I thought about that because did you miss that when you went to work? Because we live in a bubble. You live with very like-minded people. I live with 3 other chiropractors. So I'm in that chiropractic bubble where everyone's kind of on the same page. Okay, we maybe squabble a little bit about techniques and stuff like that, but we're all the same mindset. And then it's like you go out into the world and you're with the muggles. And they you're with people, they don't give a shit about their health. So what was it a struggle when you're around the normal people?
You mean now?
You're not in that bubble anymore. Well, you're back in the bubble, but when you left,
because I was living with my friend Raja, I was good, you know, and I actually enjoyed it a bit, to be outside. Then I enjoyed it a lot also to be inside here. I think you gotta brainwash yourself surround yourself with chiropractors and do all of that, but it's also great to not to lose touch to normality, and that's kind of what you're going to encounter later. Is like every patient that steps in is not in your bubble, so it's very good to meet them where they're at, you know. And I had this guy, he was like, so everyone in Amsterdam works at home, you know, from the computer, like most people. And he was like, yeah, now that I'm coming here, I don't need to go so much running and do sport because I have less pain, you know. So I was like, okay, so you need to educate again, you know, it's important, but that's that kind of bubble, you know.
Yeah, subluxated people. Yeah. So.
Yes.
So talking about more protocol or your protocol, so do you like follow the constant system with the parasympathetic and sympathetic, or?
Well, that's a good question. No, not really. I think I'm more and more trying to adjust as little as possible. Yeah. So with that, actually, and if you have someone with hormonal problems or something, it might be good to leave it within sacrum or some upper cervical things. Yeah. But I have more of an idea, a little bit of, okay, you're releasing the nervous system, but you also have the structure that carries it, and that you are kind of rebuilding a spine. You're trying to get a double S curve, because if you have gravity acting on you and you're all crooked and anterior head carriage and all this kind of stuff, you're much more prone to be subluxated again, I think. So making sure that the pelvis is aligned, that when you're walking, everything is safe, and I think is important. Yeah. So.
I'll touch on that because I know the thing that you're talking about, the thing you've read where it's saying the go-kart, you don't want to stimulate sympathetic and parasympathetic because it's like hitting the accelerator and the brake on a go-kart at the same time. And this is one of the fucking really frustrating things about chiropractic is you'll find a technique, and I read the same thing that you read, and I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And then I said it to Pat, and Pat basically explained to me in detail how that's not true. And when he explains it, you're like, fuck, that makes perfect sense. I agree with what you're saying about we don't want to rock every bone in the spine like you're playing a xylophone. But what you're saying, that's outdated. I learned that the hard way as well.
I just know. I don't know. I don't do it, but.
Yeah. Anything that you are adjusting will, in the short term, stimulate sympathetics, or that's how it was explained to me. Even if you're in the parasympathetic areas. So yeah, he was onto something, but they didn't know back then the stuff that we know now about neurology. So yeah, I'm on your team, but it's not the case, sadly.
Yeah, you always have a spike in one direction, but then you always get a response in the other direction. So
yeah,
you always That's why I think take care of the subluxation no matter where it is. That's what it's all about in the end, and then and then the person is well healed. Yeah.
With the foundation principles,
I'm a big believer in that. Yeah. Also upper thoracics. Many areas that many chiropractors don't adjust so much, that I think really important. Junctions, man. So much going on there, and then that's the problem that I see with other techniques where I'm like, okay, you're hammering on compensations, man. And then you call yourself very vitalistic or so. But yeah, that's kind of what we're dealing with. So
I think it's commendable that you're even thinking about that in second year. Were you thinking about this sort of thing in second year?
No,
when I was second year, I was just like, maybe I can do an anterior and something will crack and I'll get lucky or something. But the way you're thinking about things now, I'm really impressed. I'm gonna see what you're like in fifth year. He's gonna be kicking our asses for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure so too.
Do you adjust the extremities?
Yeah. I'm a big believer in extremities. Especially the foot, man. Didi Palmer was speaking about the foot and how important it is. So that's again philosophy. Yeah. If the founder said it's important, then you maybe should think it's important. Any bone or any joint that has a lack of motion, which causes irritation on the nerve, in my opinion, needs to be addressed. If it's the major. If it's the minor, it will go maybe away by itself. But whether that's in the wrist, the elbow, the knee, the ankle, it will cause disturbance in your nervous system. So, yeah. And if you don't do it, I think maybe it's an excuse for some.
And they're just fun. They're just fun to do. They're fun. If you do it right, they'll get better very quickly. If they have an elbow problem, a wrist problem, and you manage to hit it, 2 visits and it's done, and then you can focus on what
that is the thing, that's the whole idea of I need to get your spine stable before I touch your extremity. Well, but if the extremity is the problem, maybe the spine is not receiving stability as fast as if you would address it. So that's very bad because you're seeing that person less.
Yeah, I've sprained my ankle and it hasn't healed properly, and that's why my gait is affected, and that's what's causing this compensation. Well, we can adjust this as much as you want, but until we get the foot stable, and you'll wrestle with that as well. I wrestled with the extremities for a while, and I've said this before. I think I said this on the episode Pat did, because I got really deep into the Sigurd. There's a very famous chiropractor called Sigurfus, and he basically said, "You don't touch the extremities. If you need to touch an extremity, send it to an osteopath." And I took that to heart. I was like, okay, no extremities, and then I kind of had to go the long way around and. You'll have your line of what you will do and won't do. For instance, I'm not going to do muscle work. I'm not going to be doing trigger points. I'm not going to be doing massages. I'm not going to stretch you. It might show you something, might be like, oh, hey, maybe this might loosen you up a little bit when you're feeling tight, something like that. But I'm not going to be doing it. I'll refer out. I have a couple of patients that get the number of a good physio and just be like, hey, I'll pass you this person's number. Make sure that they tell me, what's going on. And go that way. I'm not going to do that, but I will adjust an extremity. And everyone in here is going to have something that they do. You might love talking about sleep quality and how to enhance the sleep, because if that person's subluxated and they've got a lot of emotional stress and it's affecting their sleep. Maybe you can help them with their sleep and it'll help them. I'm not in that game, but maybe you are. And you'll find where your line is. I will adjust extremities, but I'm not going to sell you supplements and look at your diet and look at your sleep. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not for me. What would you do? You adjust extremities, and what else would you do? Would you give them lifestyle advice, or?
You know, as a person myself, I like to read through all of the longevity stuff, to exercise, to eat in a certain way. So if you have someone that comes in your practice and you just see something's not right there. Sometimes I go down this rabbit hole and I usually regret it. Of course, it's not your job and you're talking a lot, so you're going to see less people and that is not your principle. But often they don't take your advice either, man. Like, how often they're asking you something and then they come back and you're like, did it? Oh no, I completely forgot. And it's like, dude, I explained you something for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, you could adjust someone else or 2 people in that time.
I had a patient come in, very well-educated guy, like very polite. He had a pretty decent job, you know, and he was fully on board with chiropractic, and I was doing the history taking and I was asking him about his lifestyle and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what about chemical stress? Do you do drugs? Do you take pharmaceutical drugs? Do you do any illegal drugs? Once a week I go out and I go to Autozus and I take a gram of MDMA. You're what? Yeah, he's like, look man, I have a stressful job. I work hard. I look after my body during the week. I eat well. I go to the gym. I do everything that I'm supposed to do. That's why I'm coming here, to help me with my health. My health is good. But you know what? At the weekend, I like to go out. I like to rave, and I like to take MDMA. And I'm like, do you have any inclination of stopping doing that? No. All right. Okay. You realize this is going to slow down your progress. Like, it's going to make my job a lot easier if you stop doing that. Like, this is affecting your nervous system badly, especially if you're doing it once a week. And he's like, I'm just going to keep doing it. And you have to just be like, okay, whatever.
Chiropractic helps you to adapt better to the stresses that you have in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one way to try and eliminate all the stresses that your people have. And it's another one to be like, look, that's going on. However, we're making you better adapt to the stress in your life. But let's go back to that example of the guy who was in an IT company and that has less pain, so he does less sport, you know. So chiropractic help him to adapt better to this position, so he can sit in there now for longer without pain. All right, but then I say, no, I'm not going to adjust you for 2 weeks. That's what I did.
Right.
So, you know.
Damn.
Then, as an example. And
yeah.
Because, and we can't be talking about health and not mention at all. I think it's important to educate, but if this guy is like happy, and
he's happy,
and he gets results, like not your business, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things you have to sit when you're like, you realize this might hinder your progress in your health journey, whatever that is. And okay, cool. Another patient, this guy's a maintenance patient. He's been with me since I started at the clinic, and now he comes once every 2 weeks. A lot of emotional stress. He had a family member that passed away, some financial troubles, blah, 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 a lot of emotional stuff going on. I adjusted him 2 weeks later as per his plan. He came in and he's like, and he knows like the free teas, blah, blah, blah. And he'll be like, lots of emotional stress this week, Zarak, like I'm really stressed out. I scoped him, did my palpation, and I said, man, your cervicals are clear. I says, do you know what this means? Because you said that you were stressed. Are you any less stressed than you were before? He's like, no, not at all. If anything, I'm more stressed. And I explained, I'm like, okay, well, you're still stressed, but your body is able to adapt to that stress. Do you understand how this works? If we can correct the subluxation, it doesn't mean that all the stresses disappear, but it means that you're able to adapt better to them. And he really, you could, you know, when you speak their language and it gets through and you saw him go, that makes perfect sense. And he didn't get his cervicals adjusted that week.
That's great.
I think he had a lumbar and a pelvis and then maybe some extremities, and that was it.
Yeah, first thing you use the scope, so that's kind of a objective finding, kind of, you know, so that's good. And then I think also when we're talking about the nervous system, it's like many things have a big impact on your nervous system. And this guy he has a lot of emotional stress and he's clear in the cervicals, let's say. Well, now, is it going to help him to come once a week or twice a week, even though he's maintenance to you? Maybe he's going to feel good temporarily, but the problem, why you get stressed, is not going to be fixed with that. So you're just like this natural ibuprofen. And that's, in my opinion, important to talk about. Of course, you're going to see less people. Like, yes, but this is again about the principle of this is good for your nervous system, but good nutrition, sleep, stress management is also really good for your nervous system. And if all of them are non-existent and the only thing that's good for your nervous system is to go to the chiropractor and get checked, then I think you're just like putting a band-aid on a big splashing wound, On the other hand, someone that has nothing done in their life and they're all a mess because they are so subluxated, so then you adjust them and they start changing their life. That's kind of the other way around. So that's why I don't judge so much within the first visits, or I try not to judge at all, but to educate too much in the first visits, because I just want to see what happens if I start adjusting them. And you see great changes, man. Like, you can talk about this woman who has gastritis and give her all the best recommendations, but man, she just needed a good adjustment, and then everything goes well, after some time. So that's
be selective of it's good to educate them, but be very selective. Don't bombard them, especially when you enter clinic, because you've done 3 years of this very hard academic stuff, and you've got all this going on, you've got all this knowledge in your brain, and you're like, I want to impress the patient with all the stuff that I know, and the patient cares about whether they get results or not. They don't care about what you got in your neuro-free exam. They're like, okay, I'm in pain, can you get me out of it? That's what they're thinking about. So it's like, take a little bit of education and teach them bit by bit. I was speaking to Patrick Sigafus yesterday, and he sent me a video, and it's this guy in America, I don't know his name, but he's doing an interview. He's a chiropractor, he's been out for a few years, and he said that he was in clinic and he had a patient coming who was a medical doctor. So he's like, oh, a medical doctor, I better, Then he found out the guy was a neurosurgeon. So he's like, oh, I'm really going to have to... He seems like a smart guy, And then it's like, no, this guy is the head neurosurgeon at the famous neurosurgery hospital. So this is like the big dog. So he's like, well, I studied my book and I brushed up on my neuroanatomy and I brushed up on disafferentation and all this, and I'm going to explain all this to him. And the guy comes for his first visit and he's like talking and talking and talking. And the guy's like, okay, just give me a second. Explain this like you were explaining it to a high schooler, please, because this is just, I did all this stuff in medical school and I don't want to hear it again. And the guy's like, oh, okay. So he explains chiropractic in a bit of a simple, he's like, stop. Explain chiropractic to me like I'm in elementary school, like I'm between 7 and 10 years old. And he explains it again. He's like, all right, now explain chiropractic like I'm a toddler. And he explains it and he's like, right, you see what you just did? Do that for the rest of your career, because that's what I care about and that's what your patients care about. Your patients don't care about this. They care about, okay, can I explain it in a simple way? I think, I don't want to I don't want to brag, but I think that's why I did okay in clinic, because I struggled the first few years and I would have a hard time explaining all that stuff. Like, if you ask me all that question, I don't know. But if you want me to explain subluxation or explain chiropractic in a very simple terms, that's what people will resonate with, and then they feel like they're talking to a normal person, not someone that's trying to play doctor. Very important. Good to know it. I'd rather that you know it than not know it, but then dilute it and serve it to the people. Because the mother of two doesn't care what you got in your neuro-free or your clinical skills exam. She cares if you can get her results and you give a shit about her.
Yeah, giving a shit and getting results. And Tim Young, in my opinion, brings it down. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's great on just simplifying the things. And he's like, people will care about, can you help them? How long will it take? How much does it cost? That, if you can tell them that, that's all they need to know. And then you say the truth and you deliver on the truth. And that is it. And that's a great thing. You don't need to lie or learn any crazy scripts and all of these things, because chiropractic works. Gotta estimate how long it will take. You can, say you might be feeling better, but in order to stabilize that, it'll take a little longer, and done. It's really easy.
I haven't met him, but I've followed him for a while, and he seems like a really smart guy, and I bet like biomechanically and with his anatomy, I bet and business-wise, he seems very, very switched on. I don't know the guy, but I would assume that when he's in practice with his patients, it's very, very simple and very clear communication, because he's not trying to impress them with, look at all this stuff I know. It's like, look, I empathize with you. I understand what your goal is by being here. Here's how I can help facilitate you get to that goal, and this is how it works, and do you want to do it or not? Let's go and get it done.
Yeah. That depends on your philosophy, and that's what my philosophy is, and that's what I told you guys before. The first job is to protect the joint that has the most stress and reintroduce motion so the stress is decreased. And you maintain that motion in the joint, and therefore nerves are going to work better, and that's chiropractic in a nutshell to me.
One more.
What was your main takeaways from Netherlands, from your work over there? What was the thing, like, I'm glad I did it. It was not the best, whatever. I don't know how it went, but what was the main thing that it was worth it because of this and this and this? What did you learn?
First of all, I think it was a very good experience, and I learned a lot. The most important thing is certainty that I got, because student clinic is one thing, but then when you're out there, you don't know if you can help people. You're like, man, you're moving bones in someone's spine. Like, it's ridiculous, right? But then you see crazy things, and it gives you just a lot of like, okay, no one helped me right now. I did that by myself, And then there's the other way of what I see myself and a lot of other people have is this poverty complex, that you are afraid of asking people for money for your work. That's a very big one. It's like the chiropractic is kind of the garage sale of healthcare system, It's like, you don't have that? Okay, do it less. But it helped me a lot for that too. It's like people pay money to get an adjustment from you, and you gotta be okay with that. And it's a big thing. And sometimes you think you're okay with it, but then you're not. And that shows in other ways. So certainty that you're able to help, that you are self-esteem. So going against the poverty complex, you are worth that amount, whatever you're asking for an adjustment.
You've done the work.
Yeah, you've done the work.
To be able to get those results.
Exactly. Those are the two. And also the communication, in a sense, like delivering with certainty what you are doing. And the more simple you make it, the better it is. Yeah. The attention span is low of the most common person. Okay, so yeah, that's it.
Can only sell shit once, guys. If you open up and you're not good at it, but you can talk, you might sell a pack. You might get them to come in for a pack. They'll not get another one. And they'll not refer.
They'll not refer.
So you better fucking make sure that in the next few years that you do the work and that you're going to be comfortable charging, because you're going to have 2 years in student clinic and then you're going to get out and it's going to be 3 times the price.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
This man's going to be charging €70 soon. In 6 months. That's a big jump from 16.
That's the truth, And you gotta be like, I own it. In order to own that, you had to put in the work. I know you guys have put in a lot of work, so that is great. But if you graduate with a lot of insecurities, again, then this associateship is even better for you. And get a coach, like get a mentor, man. But someone that really picks it up from the very bottom of you. Like, not talking about some marketing strategies, but self-work, philosophy, personal philosophy. Most important. Because I didn't do any communication classes, but I'm decently good with building rapport with people, because I try to help. Like, I see the good in them, I want to help them. So you transmit that. And that's why in student clinic, I had very hard time in the very beginning, because I didn't speak well Spanish and I didn't get referrals from the years above. So I started with 2 people, But then they referred, and then I was done quickly because I got a lot of referrals, and that's how I want to do it in the future too. Trying to do it referral based, because that gives you the amount of first visits you have and the amount of referrals you have, in my personal opinion, indicates how successful I am. Not necessarily how much money I make, but how successfully I am as a practitioner, as a chiropractor.
Everybody's like, oh, there is a very tall, handsome, in shape chiropractor. Come, let's go! And all the girls like in line around the block. Nice.
That doesn't sound too bad.
I always said I like, I've said this to you before, I like Latin and Mediterranean women, and I always said that I'm not attracted to like the blonde hair, blue eyes. So my soul is attracted to like the dark hair, dark eyes. Like that's what I want. But if I think intelligently, if I do it with my brain, I should have married a German, and then my son could be like 7 foot tall and blonde with blue eyes and have the German premium steak, you know.
German premium steak. I feel you though. I also went to the other side.
That's true. You had Mediterranean.
I like it.
That's going to be some good genetics. Yes. We both got a Mediterranean woman. That was good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for coming. We'll do a quiet round of applause for my neighbours.
Thank you.